Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Today I am back with the type of tissue. We were already discussing its types. Now the type of the tissue, we are studying the type of the animal tissue, that is the epithelial tissue. Already बता चुका हूँ कि epithelial tissue के बारे में कि here the cells are they are of human cells. You will find the different types, different shapes of the cells, and these cells will form the line. They will just form the line. They will make the linings of the different parts of our body. Now today we will discuss the type of the epithelial tissue. Now listen here. The epithelial tissue, based upon the type and the shape of the cells, we are classifying the epithelial tissue into squamous epithelial tissue, into cuboidal epithelial tissue, columnar epithelial tissue, ciliated epithelial tissue, and glandular epithelial tissue. So shape and type. Discussing the shape and discussing the type, we will discuss every type of it. We will discuss every type of the epithelial tissue. But today our lecture is on the squamous epithelial tissue. Now when we will discuss the squamous epithelial tissue, coming to the structure of the cells of the squamous epithelial tissue, what we are finding that this squamous epithelial tissue, it's made up of thin, flat, irregular shaped cells. Thin, flat, irregular shaped cells. Thin, flat, irregular shaped cells. Okay, thin, flat, irregular shaped cells. So squamous epithelial tissue, it's made up of thin, flat, irregular shaped cells. Now these cells are closely packed, leaving no intercellular spaces between them. These cells are closely together. These cells are closely packed together. They are closely packed together like the tiles of floor. Tiles of floor. Tiles of floor. You have seen the tiles of floor. When we are fitting the tiles, we are cementing together. We are cementing them together and leaving no interest. We are not keeping gap between them. Like the cells over here, they are fitted together. Okay, like the tiles of the floor, leaving no intercellular spaces. Leaving no intercellular space. So you can say that they are closely packed cells. Now, this squamous epithelial tissue, it can be simple or it can be stratified. When it is simple, when it is stratified, if this squamous epithelial tissue forms a single layer of flat and forms a single layer of thin and flat, if this squamous epithelial tissue, it forms the lining of the, I'm just telling you that if this squamous epithelial tissue is consists of the thin and flat cells, and these thin and flat cells lining the, it form the lining of mouth. It form the lining of mouth and esophagus. It form the lining of mouth and esophagus. Again, I am telling you that if the squamous epithelial tissue consists of a thin and flat cells, that time it is to be called as simple epithelial tissue. Thin flat cells, okay, thin flat cells forming the lining of mouth and esophagus, it is to be called as simple epithelial tissue. That time it is to be called as simple epithelial tissue. Simple epithelial, simple, thin, flat, single layer of cells. But when the cells of squamous epithelial tissue are arranged in many layers, like here cells are of thin and flat, single layer. Here the cells are arranged in many layers. If the cells are arranged in many layers, that time it is to be called as stratified squamous epithelial tissue. Cells are single layered, simple tissue, simple squamous epithelial tissue. Cells are of multi-layered, arranged in many layers or multi-layer. So it is to be called as stratified squamous epithelial tissue. Here the simple tissue will form the lining of mouth and lining of esophagus. The stratified squamous epithelial tissue will form, it will make the epidermis of skin. epidermis of skin. Okay. Now next point, where this squamous epithelial tissue is located within the body. If you're just finding the type, I'm just going to tell you the discussing the next of it, that is its occurrence, where you will find this locate this squamous epithelial tissue. It's located in the various parts of the body, like if coming to the simple squamous epithelial tissue, the simple squamous epithelial tissue is located. It will form the lining of blood vessels. Squamous, simple lining of blood vessels. It will make the lining of kidney tubules, which are also to be called as nephrons, kidney tubules. You'll just find it will also make the lining of alveoli of lungs. Alveoli of lungs. This is location of squamous epithelial tissue, but simple squamous epithelial tissue. Simple squamous epithelial tissue, you will find it in the lining of, it will make the lining of blood vessel, it will make the lining of kidney tubules, and also the lining of alveoli of lungs. But when it is multi-layered, cells are multi-layered, and you just find this multi-layered cells, that's called as stratified squamous epithelial tissue. It will make the epidermis of skin. Okay, besides these two occurrences, you will also find this tissue. You will also find this tissue where you will also find this tissue in. It will make here. It will make the linings of. It will make the linings of mouth, or you just call it as buccal cavity. Besides these locations, you will also find it make the linings of mouth, linings of esophagus. It will make the lining of anal canal. It will make the lining of anal canal. It will make the lining of vagina. So you just find it. Besides these locations, you also find this location in the buccal cavity, in the esophagus, in the anal canal, and in the vagina. This is the location of this tissue. Now, function of this tissue. What's the function of squamous epithelial tissue? What's its function over there? If function of this epithelial tissue in the skin, it protects the underlying, not only in the skin, but when it comes to the lining of esophagus, lining of the blood vessel, lining of kidney tubules, lining of mouth, lining of esophagus, lining of anal canal, lining of vagina. What's function of this squamous epithelial tissue over there? It will protect the underlying tissues from the mechanical injury. Pen down the first function of it. That it will first function. It is that it protect underlying tissues from mechanical injury, from mechanical injury, abrasion. You just call it abrasion or mechanical injury. Underlying, it's a stratified epithelial tissue. This stratified epithelial tissue protects the underlying tissues. In the esophagus, it will protect the underlying tissues from the mechanical injury, not from the mechanical injury. Entry of germs and chemicals also. Mechanical injury, not only mechanical injury, it will protect the entry of germs. Not only man over here, not an entry of germs, but also the entry of chemicals. This first function. What is the second function of it? What is the second function of this epithelial tissue? The second function of this epithelial tissue, it helps us in the excretion of nitrogenous wastes in the kidney tubules. Okay, it helps in the excretion. It helps in excretion. It helps in excretion in the kidneys. When it forms the lining of kidney tubules, there it helps in the excretion of nitrogenous wastes. It will filtrate out the blood over there. Okay. When it comes to the lungs, if it's make the lining of alveoli of lung, then what? It will help in gaseous exchange. It will help in gaseous exchange. Gas exchange. Got it? So, what are their functions? Protect the underlying tissues from the mechanical injury. Okay. Not only mechanical injury, but entry of germs and from the entry of chemicals also. And if it's making the lining of alveoli and lining of alveoli of lungs and lining of kidney tubules, what? It will also help. It will also help in the excretion of nitrogenous wastes, or help in the help in filtrating out the nitrogenous waste out of the blood. And second one, it will also help in the exchange of gases, like if it's making the lining of the alveoli. Got it? This is the surface view of this squamous epithelial tissue. This is the you just call it as a ventral or a lateral ventral view of this epithelial tissue. This is a surface view of epithelial tissue. So this is the type of the squamous epithelial tissue. In the next lecture, I will just demonstrate. I will just tell you the type, another type of it, that is to be called as cuboidal epithelial tissue. Best of luck. Any question related to this, you can if you any question, you can there's a comment box. You can ask any question related to that topic. Okay, best of luck.